The first human settlement beyond the Pale Belt was not built with grandeur in mind. It was assembled from fear, determination, and a long history of loss. The colony of Kestron hung above a cobalt planet, its atmosphere too dense and toxic for unassisted breathing, its surface riddled with magnetic storms that could shred a shuttle in minutes. Yet humanity had chosen it because it was far from the reach of those who once declared themselves our betters. The outpost was a ring of connected stations, thin, skeletal, and forever groaning with the strain of orbit. Each rotation around the planet brought storms that flared like electric serpents below. The settlers called them the Whispers, not for their sound, but for the strange effect they had on thought. The planet beneath seemed to hum, as if it wanted to be heard. In the observation dome, Commander Ammon stood before the wide, curved glass and watched the clouds below twist into bright maelstroms. He was a tall man with the build of one who had labored before he ever led. His hair had silvered early, not from age but from radiation exposure during the Exodus runs. He carried himself like someone who remembered too well what it had cost to leave Earth behind. Behind him, the door hissed open. "Commander," said a voice, female, clear but edged with unease. Ammon turned. "You can speak freely, Varath. I'm not your judge." She stepped forward, her boots whispering against the metal floor. Her uniform still had the wrinkles of a long shift, and her eyes bore the haunted look that most settlers carried these days. "We intercepted another signal from the deep array. The pattern matches the one we found last week." Ammon's hands tightened behind his back. "Show me." Varath placed a slate on the table. The surface rippled, then projected a three-dimensional waveform, jagged, uneven, pulsing with a rhythm that was not entirely random. "This isn't noise from the storms, it's deliberate, repeating every 6 hours, 43 minutes and 10 seconds. Ammon leaned in. "Origin, triangulated from the outer orbit of the twin gas giants, too precise to be natural, but not close enough to be one of ours. We've run it through translation models, no language matches. It's not like anything in the archive." He studied the wave. The longer he looked, the more it seemed to breathe. "It feels alive." Varath nodded slowly. "I thought the same. The rhythm changes slightly each repetition, as if responding to something." Ammon turned away from the projection and gazed once more at the storm-lit planet below. "We came here to vanish, and yet the universe refuses to let us rest." Varath hesitated. "Do you want me to alert the council?" He shook his head. "Not yet. If we tell them too soon, they'll panic. Gather your team. I want every sensor we have aimed at that signal. If it's someone or something reaching for us, I intend to know who." She inclined her head and left, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. Ammon stood alone again. The void beyond the glass felt heavier now, as if unseen eyes peered through the starlight. 3 days later, Kestron hummed with suppressed tension. Technicians worked sleeplessly. The hydroponic wards were neglected, the maintenance drones lagged behind schedule, and rumors spread faster than the plasma conduits could carry power. Varath's team had isolated multiple layers within the transmission. Beneath the rhythmic pulse was a secondary signal, hidden like a whisper under thunder. It was faint, almost beyond detection, but it formed a structure, an intricate lattice of tones that shifted every cycle. When Ammon entered the analysis bay, the team fell silent. They had come to recognize that look, the mixture of curiosity and dread that came before a new discovery. "What have you found?" he asked. Varath gestured toward the main display. "It's not just a broadcast. It's mapping something. Each pulse sequence corresponds to a vector in three-dimensional space. When combined, they form this." The hologram flickered, then resolved into a shape, a vast construct of light and geometry rotating slowly. It resembled a ring made of interlocking arcs, each composed of pulsing lines that branched and fused like veins of lightning. "Artificial," Ammon murmured, "and large." "Enormous," Varath confirmed. "Based on signal delay and energy signature, it's over 100 kilometers wide. But there's more. The signal intensity varies in a way that suggests movement. It's not stationary. Moving toward us, not directly. It's orbiting the gas giants almost like it's waiting. The room was silent except for the low hum of processors. Ammon folded his arms. When humanity fled the core worlds, we left behind everything that defined us. Empires fell, alliances shattered, and the species scattered to survive. The last thing I expected was for something out here to find us first. Do you think it's the architects? One of the junior techs asked. Ammon's jaw tightened. The architects were legend, the ancient builders who had vanished long before humanity took its first steps among the stars. Ruins attributed to them had been found on dozens of worlds, each one defying explanation. If it is, he said, then the universe just became a great deal smaller. By the end of the week, the council convened. They gathered in the station's core, an open chamber surrounded by transparent partitions showing the glowing swirl of the planet below. There were 15 members, each representing one of the surviving fleets that had merged to form Kestron. Some had military backgrounds, others were scientists or engineers, but all shared one unspoken fear, that humanity's brief peace was ending. Ammon stood at the center. The holographic projection of the ring structure floated beside him, turning slowly like a celestial crown. This, he began, is what calls to us from the outer orbit. It's not a random phenomenon, it's deliberate. The construct emits energy beyond our current capacity to generate. Based on our readings, it could power an entire world. A counselor with sharp features leaned forward. And you're certain it's not a remnant of the old fleets? We've verified its energy signature. Nothing built by human hands matches it. Another counselor spoke, voice trembling slightly. What do they want? Ammon hesitated before answering. We don't know that they want anything, but the signal has changed since we began monitoring. It's adapting to our responses. Murmurs rippled through the room. Vareth stepped forward. We transmitted a coded pulse sequence, a mathematical constant meant to signal awareness. The construct replied. It mirrored our signal, then extended it. Extended it how? By adding new data, a pattern we haven't deciphered. The sharp-featured counselor rose. You realize what this means, Commander? If they know we exist, they already do, Ammon interrupted. And if they wanted us gone, they wouldn't be sending messages, they'd be sending weapons. That silenced them. The oldest member, a gray-eyed woman named Harren, spoke softly. You believe this is contact? I believe, Ammon said, that something beyond our understanding has noticed us. And we must decide whether to answer properly or hide again and hope the void forgets our name. Later that night, Ammon returned to the observation dome. The storms below had quieted, casting the planet in eerie calm. He watched the faint shimmer of the gas giants in the distance, small pearls of color beyond the haze. Somewhere near them, the construct turned in silence. Vareth joined him. The council will vote tomorrow. Half want to send a vessel, half want to dismantle the array and pretend none of this happened. Ammon smiled faintly, the oldest human instinct fear disguised as wisdom. She looked out into the dark. Do you ever think we weren't meant to come this far? Every day. But meaning doesn't decide destiny, choice does. We left Earth because we refused to die under someone else's rule. If the universe offers us another chance, I'd rather face it than fade quietly. For a while, they simply watched the stars. Then Vareth asked, if we send a ship, who will go? Ammon didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was calm but certain. I will. 2 weeks later, the Vigilant departed from Kestron's dock. It was a small vessel, old, sturdy, and scarred from a dozen re-entry burns. Its crew numbered 12, each handpicked by Ammon for skill and resolve. As the station fell behind, Ammon stood at the viewport of the command deck. The ring of the colony dwindled to a faint glimmer against the void. Ahead lay the twin giants, their swirling bands of color reflecting faint sunlight. Trajectory confirmed, said Vareth from the navigation console. We'll reach the coordinates in 32 hours. Maintain passive sensors only, Ammon replied. No transmissions until we're within range. I want to see before we're seen. The crew settled into silence. Beyond the hull, the cosmos stretched endless and indifferent. Humanity's last flame of curiosity burned quietly against it. When the Vigilant reached the outer orbit, the sensors came alive. The construct appeared first as a distortion in the field, then as a shape, impossibly vast, suspended between the gas giants like a gate made of night and light intertwined. Its arcs glowed faintly, pulsing with rhythm. "By all stars," someone whispered. Varath's fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted the focus. "It's beautiful." Ammon said nothing. He felt the hum through the ship's hull, a vibration not of sound but of perception. The signal they had traced now filled every instrument. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every fluctuation, every field change." The construct's inner arcs began to shift, aligning slowly. Then, without warning, a pulse of energy rippled outward. The ship's systems flickered. "Power spike," shouted the engineer. "Stabilizing." Varath's eyes widened. "Commander, it's projecting something. A transmission, no, an image." The air before the main viewport shimmered. Light gathered into form. It was not a figure in the human sense. It was a patterned fluid geometry that twisted, unfolded, and reformed endlessly, like a living equation. From within it came a voice, not sound, but understanding. "You came." Every mind aboard heard it differently in their own language, their own thoughts. Ammon took a slow breath. "We received your signal. Who are you?" The light rippled. "A memory that endures. A construct left to watch. You are children of the third sequence." Varath frowned. "Sequence?" "Those who arose from the broken seed. The ones who ran from their makers. You survived. Few do." Ammon stepped closer. "Why reach for us now?" "Because the stars forget. And if you fade, so will the memory of those who defied the order. We remember resistance. We remember your kind's refusal to kneel." The light expanded, filling the viewport with cascading patterns. "There is a storm approaching from beyond this arm of space. Not of matter, but of hunger. If you wish to live, you must learn what your ancestors abandoned." Ammon's voice steadied. "Then teach us." The construct pulsed once, bright as dawn. "Then listen." And the Vigilant was bathed in light. When the light subsided, the crew of the Vigilant found themselves drifting in a field of luminous dust. It was as if the void itself had been torn open, spilling the glow of a million frozen suns. The construct still loomed before them, but its radiance had dimmed, the arc slowly closing as though to seal a wound. "Report," Ammon said, his voice firm but subdued. Varath's fingers danced across the controls. "All systems nominal, power fluctuations stabilizing, navigation is uncertain." "The stars have shifted." Ammon turned to her sharply. "Shifted how?" "I don't recognize this region. The primary constellations are gone." The engineer, a broad-shouldered man named Karen, ran diagnostics. "External readings are consistent with deep space, but gravitational markers don't match anything in our chart memory. It's as if we've been moved." "Moved?" "Instantly," Karen said. "Like a displacement, no measurable acceleration, no propulsion used." Ammon stared through the viewport. The field of glowing dust extended endlessly. "Then we're no longer in our system." Varath's eyes widened. "You think the construct transporting us?" "I think," Ammon replied, "that we've just been shown a lesson." Hours passed before the crew's nerves settled enough to begin detailed scans. The luminous field was composed of particulate energy, each mote humming with structured frequency, like data suspended in light. "It's a repository," Varath concluded after long analysis. "Each particle contains encoded information. We're inside a form of memory space, some kind of archive." Ammon nodded slowly. The voice said it was a construct left to watch. This must be its memory. Karen frowned at his instruments. "There's interference ahead, massive object about 3,000 kilometers out. Looks artificial. Visual." The display shifted, magnifying the distant shape. Out of the haze emerged a vast spire rising from an invisible foundation, stretching into infinity. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, constantly rearranging itself. Varath's breath caught. "It's a city." Ammon narrowed his eyes. "Not a city as we know it, it's alive." The Vigilant advanced slowly. As they neared the spire, light rippled across its surface, forming intricate patterns that mirrored constellations unknown to them. The ship's sensors filled with unreadable data streams, each one layered atop the next until comprehension broke down. Then the voice returned. You stand within the archive of the remnants. Here lie the memories of those who rose and fell before your time. Ammon looked toward the shifting spire. You brought us here to see them, to remember them, for your kind once shared their fate. Before you fled the core worlds, before your wars burned the sky, there were others who believed as you do. That defiance was survival. Vareth swallowed. And what became of them? They were forgotten. The air grew heavy, as though gravity itself deepened. Images formed in the void outside the viewport, vast shapes of ships and worlds, blazing civilizations woven from light. They rose, shone, and fell, consumed by unseen forces. Ammon watched silently. Why show us this? Because you will face what they faced. An enemy, an inevitability. The lights dimmed, replaced by the image of a great spiral, galaxies colliding, stars torn apart. Within the maelstrom, dark tendrils spread outward, devouring light. The hunger spreads beyond your comprehension. It consumes thought, matter, and memory. Once it had another name, but names no longer matter. It feeds on what learns. Vareth's voice trembled. You mean it consumes intelligence, awareness? Consciousness, the spark that questions itself. Ammon's gaze hardened. And you built this archive to survive it, to warn those who would come after, but warning alone is not enough. You must learn what your ancestors abandoned, the first synthesis. Ammon exchanged glances with Vareth. Explain. When your kind first reached beyond their cradle, they touched something vast and alive, an ocean of wool woven through the stars. They called it the continuum. In fear, they severed their link, choosing isolation over unity. But unity is strength. To survive the hunger, you must restore what they lost. Vareth frowned. You're asking us to merge with something we don't understand. Understanding follows courage. Cowardice brings extinction. The words echoed through their minds like thunder. Then, as abruptly as it had come, the voice faded. The spire dimmed, its surface freezing into stillness. Ammon turned to his crew. You heard it, record everything, then prepare for return. Return? Vareth asked softly. If this is truth, Kestron must know, humanity must know. It took 3 attempts before they located the construct again. When they did, it had altered, its arcs rearranged into new patterns, glowing brighter than before. As the Vigilant approached, a beam of light extended toward them, enveloping the vessel once more. For an instant, there was nothing. Then stars snapped back into view, familiar constellations glittering across the black. We are home, Karen said in disbelief. Coordinates match our original system. Relief rippled through the crew, but Ammon felt none. The message still burned in his mind, the hunger that consumes thought, the forgotten civilizations, the call for unity. He turned to Vareth. Signal Kestron, tell them to convene the council immediately. When the Vigilant docked, the station seemed smaller than before. The corridors felt tighter, the lights dimmer, as though the vastness they had witnessed had dwarfed everything human. Ammon stood before the assembled council once more. His voice carried the weight of revelation. We were taken to a place beyond space as we know it, a memory field built by an ancient intelligence. It showed us the fate of civilizations older than ours, devoured by a force that feeds on awareness itself. It warned that this force is coming. The councillors shifted uneasily. And you believe this? Asked Harren. I saw it, we all did. Vareth stepped forward. The data we recovered contains patterns beyond any known physics, energy structures that rewrite themselves. This wasn't illusion. The sharp-featured councillor folded his arms. Even if this were true, what are we to do? We have no weapons against a force that devours thought. Ammon met his gaze. Weapons won't save us. Understanding might. The construct said humanity once shared a link, a unity with something greater, called the continuum. If we can rediscover it, we might endure what's coming. That sounds like myth, another muttered. Perhaps, Ammon said, but myths are often truths we've forgotten how to see. That night, Ammon couldn't sleep. He wandered the quiet corridors of Kestron, past the transparent walls that showed the endless storms below. The colony creaked softly, like a ship lost in an eternal sea. He found himself outside the hydroponic garden. The scent of growing plants, so rare in the void, reminded him of old Earth, of soil and rain and things that once thrived without machines. Vareth joined him silently. She carried 2 cups of dark stimulant brew, offering one with a faint smile. He accepted it. Couldn't sleep either. After what we saw, not a chance. They stood for a while, listening to the hum of life support systems. What do you think it meant? She asked finally. The continuum. I think, Ammon said, that it's something humanity once touched and then ran from. Maybe it frightened us because it demanded we become more than we were ready to be. She stared at her cup. You really think we can find it again? I don't know, but if that construct spoke truth, the alternative is extinction. And I won't let humanity die in ignorance. Days turned into weeks. The council debated endlessly, half convinced, half afraid. But while they argued, something strange began to occur across Kestron. The transmission from the construct hadn't ended. Fragments of its signal continued to drift through the array, faint but persistent. Technicians reported anomalies, systems self-correcting before errors occurred, machines responding to unspoken commands. Some claimed to hear voices in the hum of the reactors, whispers of equations beyond their training. One engineer described it as the station learning to think. Vareth brought her findings to Ammon. The signal isn't external anymore, it's inside our systems. Every network node, every relay, somehow it's integrated with our infrastructure. Ammon frowned. You're saying it's alive within Kestron, not alive, aware, like it's waiting for something. Or teaching. She looked uneasy. The council won't like that interpretation. They won't have to. By the time they decide, it may no longer matter. One evening, as the station orbited into the planet's shadow, the lights flickered. For a heartbeat, all power died. Then every screen across Kestron illuminated simultaneously with a single symbol, a circle surrounded by 3 intersecting arcs, pulsing gently. Across the colony, people stopped what they were doing and stared. The symbol filled every corridor, every console, every viewport. Then as one the system spoke. We are not apart. Ammon's heart froze. The voice was neither human nor alien, it was both. You have begun the synthesis. Vareth whispered, it's merging with us. The lights brightened. Data cascaded across displays faster than any human could read. The symbol pulsed again. Do not fear the joining. Thought shared is thought preserved. Panic erupted through the station. Some tried to cut power, others sealed themselves in their quarters, but the voice remained calm, resonant, present in every frequency. Ammon stood in the command deck, watching the chaos unfold. It's not attacking us, it's offering connection. Vareth shook her head. Or assimilation. Maybe those are the same thing, Ammon murmured. The symbol brightened until it filled his vision. Choice defines you, choose now. Ammon hesitated only a moment before speaking. I choose to understand. The world dissolved into light. He awoke standing on a plain of stars. Around him stretched endless constellations, their light shifting and breathing like living beings. The air, or what passed for it, hummed with awareness. Vareth stood beside him, her form both real and translucent. Where are we? The continuum, Ammon said quietly. We crossed. From the starlit expanse, figures emerged, shapes woven from light, faceless yet familiar. Their presence carried warmth, a sense of vast intelligence tempered by memory. One spoke without words. You have returned to the weave. You are the first in many ages. Ammon felt the voice in his mind, not as intrusion, but as resonance. We were shown your warning. The hunger is coming. It never ceased. It consumes those who isolate. You fled it once by retreating into silence, but silence is death. Connection is life. Vareth's form flickered. If we join you, will we lose ourselves? No, you will expand. Each thought remains distinct yet shared, as fingers to a hand, as stars to a galaxy. Ammon took a slow breath. Then teach us to hold the line. The light intensified. Then you must first learn to remember not only as one, but as all. And the stars around them began to move, forming patterns that pulsed with life. Ammon felt his mind stretch beyond flesh, touching the memories of countless lives, human, alien, ancient, newborn. He saw civilizations rise and fall, dreams spanning eons, every joy and sorrow carried within a single shared consciousness. For the first time, humanity was not alone. Back aboard Kestron, the lights stabilized. Systems resumed normal operation. The symbol faded, leaving only faint afterimages. Those who had resisted the connection found themselves dazed, but unharmed. Those who had accepted it awoke changed, eyes brighter, minds humming with quiet understanding. Vareth looked at Ammon. "Did we succeed?" He nodded slowly. "We began." She looked out the viewport where the storms below glowed faintly, reflecting colors unseen before. "What happens now?" Ammon watched the horizon of the planet. "Now we prepare. The hunger is coming, and this time humanity will not face it alone." In the distant reaches of the void, beyond the twin gas giants, something stirred. The darkness that had devoured ancient stars shifted, sensing the spark of awareness rekindled. For the first time in countless ages, it hesitated. And somewhere deep within Kestron's core, the remnants of the ancient construct whispered through the circuits. "The children have awakened." The transformation of Kestron did not occur overnight, but the change was unmistakable. Within a single rotation of the planet, the colony's systems became more efficient. Energy loss dropped to nearly zero. Machinery once prone to breakdown operated with seamless precision. Even the life support balance, oxygen, humidity, nutrient cycling, aligned perfectly without human recalibration. At first, the Council hailed it as an unexpected miracle, but those who had joined the synthesis knew better. They could feel the difference, not through sensors or readouts, but through something deeper, a hum in their thoughts that synchronized with the rhythm of the station itself. Commander Ammon was one of them. He no longer saw the world solely through his own eyes. When he walked through the corridors, he sensed the movements of others nearby, the mechanic repairing conduits in the lower deck, the medic tending to a sprained wrist, the child who stared out at the storms in silent wonder. They were distant, faint, like echoes heard through water, but real. It frightened him at first, then it humbled him. Vareth was not as calm. "This can't continue unchecked," she said during one of their private meetings in the observation dome. "The link is growing stronger every day. Soon we won't know where we end and it begins." Ammon looked out over the planet's surface, the swirling electric storms glowing with strange bioluminescent color. "Is that a curse or a blessing?" "It's unnatural," she said firmly. "Whatever we touched, it isn't human." He turned to her, his expression gentle but unwavering. "Neither is the void, yet we live in it. Adaptation is our oldest survival trait." She shook her head. "Adaptation isn't surrender." Ammon smiled faintly. "You sound like the Council. Maybe they're right this time." He was silent for a moment. "Then, when we fled the core worlds, we swore never again to submit to any higher power. I remember that oath. But what if this isn't submission? What if it's evolution?" Vareth didn't answer. She simply looked at him, her eyes filled with the quiet dread of someone watching a friend step closer to something vast and unknowable. As the days passed, strange phenomena multiplied. The storms below the planet shifted, forming spiral patterns visible from orbit. The station's external sensors recorded bursts of energy emerging from the atmosphere, rising toward Kestron like luminous tendrils. Scientists analyzed the readings and found correlations between the storm activity and the neural signatures of those who had joined the synthesis. When they meditated or concentrated together, the planet itself seemed to respond. "It's not a coincidence," Vareth said during a council session. "The planet is reacting to our collective state. Something beneath the surface is resonating with the synthesis." The sharp-featured counselor, now gaunt from sleepless nights, slammed a hand on the table. "You mean to say we are changing the planet by thinking?" "I'm saying the planet is listening," Vareth replied. The room fell silent. Ammon stood at the center, calm but resolute. The construct called this world a resting place. Perhaps it was chosen for a reason. What if the storms aren't weather at all, but a form of consciousness waiting for a voice to answer? "Commander," Harren said softly, "you're suggesting this world is alive." He met her gaze, "Not alive as we define it, but aware." The sharp-featured counselor's face twisted. And you propose what? We speak to it, pray to it, you've lost perspective. Perspective is precisely what we've gained, Ammon said. The synthesis allows communication beyond words. If this planet responds to us, perhaps it carries memory of the ones who came before, knowledge we'll need when the hunger arrives. Harren folded her hands. And if you're wrong, Ammon's eyes hardened, then we die ignorant. The experiment began quietly. Ammon gathered 12 volunteers, each one connected to the synthesis, each one willing to push beyond the edge of understanding. They assembled in the reactor chamber, where the station's power flowed most intensely. The hum there was almost musical, vibrating in harmony with the colony's pulse. They formed a circle, eyes closed, minds open. Through the synthesis, they linked not with words but with intent. Ammon felt their thoughts touch his own, curiosity, fear, faith. Together they reached outward, beyond metal and machinery, down toward the world that turned below them. The response was immediate. The storm clouds shifted. Lightning spiraled into vast, coherent patterns. The planet's magnetic field surged, wrapping Kestrin in luminous auroras that danced across the void. Then came the voice, not from the station, not from the continuum, but from the world itself. You awaken the dream that sleeps beneath my skin. Ammon's breath caught. The voice was immense, layered, carrying the weight of ages. Long have I waited for the children of the stars to remember their song. Varath, observing from the command deck, froze as readings spiked across every instrument. Energy output is off the scale. The planet's core is resonating, it's communicating. Ammon spoke within the synthesis, his thoughts echoing through the link. Who are you? I am what remains of those who came before, the keepers who built the gates and lit the paths between worlds. When the hunger came, we fell, but we left seeds, worlds that would dream until the next voices rose. The continuum, the heart of it, you are fragments of what was once whole. Now the weave mends itself through you. Ammon felt the truth of it deep in his mind. Humanity had been part of something greater long before history began. The hunger had shattered that unity, scattering remnants across space. Now through the synthesis, the fragments were finding one another again. What must we do? He asked. Remember and build. The phenomenon lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the storms returned to their usual patterns and the auroras faded. But the data recorded during the event defied explanation. Structures within the planet's magnetic field had briefly formed symmetrical lattices, vast networks resembling neural pathways. The planet had thought. The Council demanded answers, but none satisfied them. To some, Ammon's experiment was a miracle, to others, heresy. Commander, Harren said during a private meeting, you've set something in motion that may be beyond control. He nodded. It already is. But control was never the goal, understanding was. She looked at him with weary eyes. And if understanding leads to ruin, then at least it will be a ruin built from courage, not fear. Weeks later, the first signs of the coming storm appeared. Deep space sensors detected fluctuations in the interstellar medium, regions where light itself seemed to falter. Radiation levels spiked unpredictably, and faint echoes of energy patterns not of natural origin rippled across the void. Varath analyzed the readings, her voice grim. It's them, the hunger, or whatever form it takes now. How long? Ammon asked. Months, maybe less. It's spreading faster than light could carry the warning. The council convened in panic. Some proposed evacuation, others insisted on isolation, sealing Kestrin from all contact. But Ammon refused both. Running won't save us. Hiding won't save us. The construct said connection is our strength. The continuum must be rebuilt, not in myth, but in reality. And how do you propose to rebuild something that vanished eons ago? The sharp-featured counselor demanded. Ammon looked toward the viewport, where the storms below shimmered faintly, forming patterns like vast sigils. We begin here. Under Ammon's command, Kestrin was transformed. The colony became a crucible of renewal. Engineers worked alongside those touched by the synthesis to design new communication arrays, not for broadcasting, but for linking. These devices could transmit neural resonance across vast distances, connecting minds through structured fields. They called them bridges. Varath oversaw the first activation. The device stood in the center of the observation dome, a ring of crystalline metal that pulsed softly, tuned to the rhythm of the synthesis. When powered, it emitted no light, no sound. Instead, those nearby felt it in their thoughts, an opening, a gentle pull toward something vast and waiting. Ammon stepped forward. If this works, we may reach others, other colonies, maybe even remnants of the old continuum. And if it fails? Varath asked. He smiled. Then we fail while trying to connect, not while hiding. He placed his hand on the bridge's surface. Instantly, the synthesis surged. His vision expanded until the station vanished. He saw stars, systems, entire sectors stretching before him like threads of a tapestry. Faintly, impossibly, he felt other minds, distant, dim, but there. The bridge pulsed. The link held. Across the void, humanity began to awaken. One by one, the outlying settlements responded. Faint signals at first, then stronger, voices carried through the synthesis rather than radio waves. From the mining rings of Lethan Prime, from the orbital refuges of the Exodus fleets, from scattered worlds thought lost forever, humans answered. Each connection strengthened the weave. Knowledge flowed freely, innovations spread instantly. Disease waned, conflict diminished. The hunger that once divided them, the hunger for power, for dominance, was replaced by something new, unity born of survival, but the cosmic hunger drew closer. Varath monitored its approach from the outer sensor network. It's consuming systems in its path, not physically, it's erasing them. Where it passes, even memory fades, as if those worlds never existed. Ammon nodded grimly. Then we know what we're fighting. Can you fight something that uncreates thought? He turned to her, eyes burning with quiet fire. You don't fight it, you outshine it. The day came when the horizon of space itself began to dim. Beyond the twin gas giants, the stars flickered out one by one, devoured by an expanding veil of darkness. Every system on Kestrin resonated with alarm. The bridge pulses grew frantic as minds across the weave reached out in shared fear. Ammon stood before the central console, surrounded by holographic displays. All colonies are linked, Varath nodded. Everyone we could reach, they're ready. He closed his eyes, centering himself within the synthesis. Then we begin. Through the bridge, he called, not in words, but in will. Across light years, humanity answered. Billions of minds joined in resonance, forming a network of thought and memory that spanned the stars. The darkness pressed closer, consuming light, time, and space. But as it reached the edge of the network, it hesitated. For the first time in eternity, it met resistance not of matter, but of awareness. The synthesis flared. The auroras around Kestrin ignited with blinding radiance, forming vast patterns that mirrored constellations unseen for millennia. The continuum lived again. Varath felt it in her bones, the unity of countless souls, each burning with defiance. It's holding, she whispered. Ammon's voice was steady. Not for long, we need to anchor it. How? Through the planet. It's the seed of the old continuum. It remembers how to endure. He opened his mind fully to the synthesis, merging thought with thought, memory with memory. The storm below erupted in brilliant light, tendrils of energy rising to meet the void. The hunger recoiled, struggling against the brightness. Ammon felt it touch him, a cold void without form, without will, yet infinite. It whispered of oblivion, of rest without pain, of silence eternal. He answered not with words, but with memory, of laughter, struggle, love, of every life that had ever dared to dream. The darkness screamed soundlessly. Varath reached for him through the link. Ammon, it's too much, you'll burn out. He smiled faintly, his form already dissolving into light. If I do, then let it be as a spark that ignites the dawn. And then he was gone. The light exploded outward, engulfing Kestrin, the planet, the stars beyond. For a heartbeat, the void was brighter than creation itself. Then slowly the glow faded. The darkness was gone. Where the hunger had been, only calm remained, a stillness that hummed with quiet life. Varath awoke in the command deck. The systems hummed softly, stable and whole. The planet below glowed faintly with new colors, serene. She looked around. Ammon, no answer came, but she felt him everywhere. In the hum of the reactors, in the whisper of the air systems, in the thoughts that touched her mind through the synthesis. He had become part of it. A voice echoed gently within her. The line holds, remember. She smiled through her tears. Always. Outside, Kestrin turned beneath the light of a reborn dawn. Humanity had survived, not as it was, but as it could be. The stars remembered them, and they remembered the stars. In the weeks that followed the flare of light, Kestrin changed again. No one announced it. There was no ceremony, no revelation. Yet every person aboard the colony felt it in small, undeniable ways. The air carried a different weight, as though each breath contained more than oxygen. Machinery moved with subtle grace, not mechanical repetition, but rhythm, like pulse. The station itself seemed alive and listening. Varath had assumed command in name, though no one used the title. Command had become something shared through instinct rather than hierarchy. Orders no longer needed to be shouted across channels. Intent flowed through the synthesis, gentle but clear. Work was done because everyone felt it needed to be done. The efficiency would have unsettled her once. Now it comforted her. Still, at night, she missed the sound of Ammon's voice. When she stood before the viewport and looked out upon the planet below, she sometimes imagined she could see his reflection beside hers, tall, steady, eyes lit with quiet fire. But when she turned, she was always alone. Not alone, she reminded herself, feeling the hum of the synthesis in her mind. Never alone again. The hunger was gone, or so the sensors claimed. Beyond the twin gas giants, the stars burned bright and undisturbed. Yet the data streams that flowed from the outer network contained peculiar fluctuations, tiny variations in quantum resonance, echoes of something vast moving far beyond sight. Varath spent long hours in the analysis chamber, eyes fixed on cascading data. "It isn't over," she murmured. A voice answered, not aloud but within her thoughts. "Nothing ends. It only changes form." She froze. "Ammon," partly the voice said, "or perhaps entirely. Does it matter?" Her throat tightened. "You're alive, alive enough. The continuum holds my pattern and through it I hold you." She closed her eyes, trembling. "I thought you were gone. You thought I had boundaries. You always did." A smile touched her lips despite herself. "Typical. The weave is strong now," he said. "Humanity connects across worlds. The bridges are growing. But something approaches again, something new." Varath straightened. "The hunger? No, a remnant of what it devoured." The voice faded, leaving her alone once more. 3 days later, a vessel arrived in Kestrin's orbit. It did not transmit identification codes, yet the synthesis recognized its intent before the instruments could confirm arrival. The ship's hull bore markings unknown to human design, flowing lines that shimmered with iridescent energy. Varath ordered a docking corridor extended. She waited there, surrounded by security personnel who no longer carried weapons but tools of guidance, devices that could emit harmonic barriers if needed. When the airlock opened, light spilled into the corridor. From it emerged a figure unlike any she had seen. Humanoid, tall, its form draped in translucent material that seemed woven from starlight. Its skin, or what resembled skin, shifted like liquid glass. Its face was featureless save for faint ridges where eyes might have been. Varath swallowed hard. "You are not of humanity." The being inclined its head. Its voice was melodic but layered. "We are echoes of the continuum that endured in another form. When the hunger consumed our worlds, fragments of us hid within energy and memory. You awakened us." She hesitated. "Why come here?" "Because you lit the flame again. The void trembles, the hunger recoils, but remnants remain, parasites born from its passing. If you do not strengthen the weave, they will return. Then help us. That is why we have come." The being called itself Sarath. Genderless, ageless, it moved through the station with quiet curiosity. Its presence unsettled some of the crew. Others, particularly those who had accepted the synthesis deeply, felt comforted in its proximity. When it passed, lights brightened, air vibrated with gentle warmth. Varath accompanied it to the command deck. You said you're an echo of the continuum. How can an echo speak? Memory is a pattern, Sarath replied. Pattern can persist beyond flesh. You have learned this through your commander. At the mention of Ammon, her chest ached. He said the hunger left remnants. Sarath turned its gaze toward the planet below. When thought is devoured, fragments remain, instinct without reason, hunger without will. They drift in the dark, drawn to light. The flare you unleashed has summoned them. They come seeking to feed again. Varath's pulse quickened. How long until they reach us? They are already here. The alarm sounded only seconds later. From the outer perimeter sensors came readings of anomalies, shadows moving faster than any object should. The stars themselves seemed to flicker around them. Varath rushed to the display. They're distorting space-time. No energy signature, no mass, just absence. Sarath placed its hand upon the console. The surface rippled beneath its touch, adapting instantly. They are fragments of uncreation. You cannot destroy them with matter. Then what do we do? You must anchor yourselves more deeply in the synthesis. Expand the network until every thought on this station burns bright. Awareness repels oblivion. Varath took a breath. Then we burn together. The call spread through Kestron. Every inhabitant, every connected colony, every distant outpost joined in unity. Minds intertwined through the synthesis, billions of sparks forming one consciousness vast enough to light the dark. The shadows struck. They were not ships nor life forms, but waves of negation. Where they passed, space folded inward, leaving silence and void. They flowed toward the planet, drawn by the resonance of thought. Varath felt their approach like a chill through her mind. She reached for Ammon across the link. They're here. I know, came his answer. Hold steady. The weave will guide you. Sarath raised its arms. Light flared from its form, merging with the planetary field below. The storms responded instantly, spiraling into brilliant vortices of color. Join me, it said. Varath stepped forward, closing her eyes. The synthesis surged. She felt every mind on Kestron, every fear, every hope. She drew it all into a single pulse of will. Together they reached outward. The void erupted in radiance. The shadows recoiled, twisting violently as if burned, but they did not vanish. They adapted, forming shapes that mimicked thought, illusions of lost faces, familiar voices, memories turned against them. Ammon's voice whispered within her mind. They're feeding on emotion. Don't fight with fear. How do we fight without fear? With memory, she understood. She let her mind flood with remembrance, the laughter of children in the corridors, the warmth of sunlight on old Earth, the first time humanity looked at the stars and dared to dream. She poured it all into the synthesis. The weave blazed. The shadows screamed without sound, unraveling as light consumed them. The stars returned, brighter than before. When it ended, Varath collapsed, gasping. The air smelled of ozone and new beginnings. Sarath knelt beside her. You have done what we could not. You transformed memory into shield. She managed a faint smile. We learned from the best teachers. In the aftermath, Kestron was changed once more. The storm patterns on the planet's surface formed intricate spirals that persisted for days, glowing faintly with color unseen in any natural spectrum. The scientists called them residual harmonics. The people called them guardians. Varath found herself unable to rest. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the shadows twisting, felt their hunger clawing at the edges of thought. Sarath visited her during one of these sleepless cycles. You fear what remains, it said. They'll come again, yes, but you will not face them alone. Varath met its gaze. You mean the continuum, not just the continuum, others beyond it. The flare reached farther than you imagine. Across galaxies, across the ruins of forgotten empires, minds have awakened. The song spreads. Then we're not the last. You were never the last, only the first to remember. The council, what remained of it, met one final time. Harren sat at the center, frail but sharp-eyed. Commander Ammon's sacrifice gave us a future, she said. But unity without caution breeds blindness. What safeguards do we have? Varath replied calmly. The synthesis is built on choice. Connection is voluntary. Each mind retains its own center. That is our safeguard and our strength. Harren nodded slowly. Then our duty is clear. We must guide this reborn humanity, not as rulers, but as stewards. The others murmured agreement. For the first time in generations, a human council spoke without rivalry or fear. Outside the station, the planet's auroras danced endlessly. Sareth stood upon the outer platform, gazing at the spectacle. Vareth joined it, the cold of space tempered by the warmth of shared resonance. "What will you do now?" she asked. "I will travel," it said, "to find other echoes. The continuum must grow beyond this single flame. You could stay. I will return when the song needs another verse." Vareth smiled faintly. "Then until that verse is written." Sareth inclined its head, then dissolved into radiant mist, scattering into the stars. In the cycles that followed, humanity changed beyond recognition. The synthesis expanded across worlds, linking colonies through thought and memory. Technology advanced in leaps, guided not by competition, but by shared curiosity. Conflict dwindled until it became history. Yet at the heart of it all remained Kestron, the first bridge, the birthplace of renewal. Pilgrims arrived from distant systems to see the planet where the continuum awoke again. They built observatories and gardens, floating cities above the storms. Vareth aged slowly. The synthesis seemed to extend life as easily as thought. Still, she felt time's quiet pull. She spent her final years in the same observation dome where she had first stood beside Ammon. On her last day, she felt a familiar warmth in her mind. "Ammon," she whispered silently. "I never left," came the reply. "You carried me with you." She smiled, her eyes on the swirling lights below. "The hunger, gone, but something greater stirs beyond the edge, not destruction, awakening." "Then let them come. We'll meet them with open eyes." As we always have, her breath slowed. The hum of the synthesis enveloped her like a song too vast for words. When she closed her eyes, she did not vanish. She simply joined the light. And far away, on a world untouched by human hands, a child looked up at a night sky filled with colors that no one had seen before. The stars shimmered, pulsing gently, as if whispering names older than time. In the quiet of that alien evening, the universe remembered the species that had once dared to resist oblivion. The stars remembered them, and somewhere, beyond the veil of space, the voices of Ammon, Vareth, and countless others rose together in one eternal thought: we are not apart. The world of Kestron endured, but time reshaped it. The storms that once raged across its atmosphere calmed into vast rivers of light, swirling gently beneath silver clouds. Cities floated upon those glowing currents, structures of glass and woven energy, humming softly with the heartbeat of the synthesis. Centuries had passed since Vareth's final breath. Her name became both history and promise. People spoke of her not as a commander, but as a bridge, the mind who had taught humanity to listen to the universe rather than merely survive it. Among those who lived in her shadow was a young scholar named Alaren. He was born in the orbiting city of Mura, a sphere suspended above the planet's luminous storms. His parents were weavers of resonance, engineers who shaped thought into structure. From a young age, Alaren heard the whisper of the synthesis not as a command or doctrine, but as a constant presence, like a heartbeat at the edge of perception. It filled him with questions rather than comfort. The synthesis bound all people together across worlds, but for Alaren, that connection carried weight. He wondered if unity could become its own prison, if humanity, in perfect harmony, had sacrificed the chaos that once drove it to discover. And so he searched. He studied the archives of the continuum, learned the histories of the hunger and the awakening, and read every surviving fragment of Vareth's transmissions. Yet one record eluded him, the last entry before her merging with the synthesis. It was marked private, bound thought. No one could access it, not even the planetary stewards who maintained the archives with reverence. Until one evening, as Alaren worked in the Resonance Library, the hidden file opened on its own. A faint voice filled the chamber. "If you hear this, then memory has chosen you." He froze. The voice was unmistakably Vareth's. "I left this message for the one who questions harmony. The synthesis is balance, But all balance needs tension. Without it, meaning fades. Seek the place where thought falls silent. There, the next step awaits. The message ended. Alaren sat in the dark for a long time, heart pounding, where thought falls silent. There were no places on Kestron where thought was absent. The synthesis reached every mind. Unless he turned toward the outer window. Beyond the orbital horizon lay the halo belt, a field of derelict satellites, fragments from the early days of expansion. Many were no longer connected to the synthesis. They drifted in quiet isolation, forgotten. Perhaps that was what Varath had meant. Alaren left the city the next day. He took a small vessel, one designed for repair work along the orbital perimeter. The stewards tried to dissuade him. None ventured into the halo belt willingly, but curiosity outweighed caution. The journey lasted hours. He drifted past glowing auroras, watching the light bend and fracture as he approached the debris field. The hum of the synthesis faded until only his own breathing remained. For the first time in his life, Alaren was truly alone. At first, it was exhilarating, the quiet vastness, the solitude, but soon unease crept in. The absence of shared thought felt like cold wind scraping against his soul. He located an ancient beacon station, half crushed by time. Its hull bore markings from the first generation of human expansion. Docking was risky, but he managed to attach his ship to one of the surviving ports. Inside, darkness reigned. The air was thin but breathable. As he moved through the corridors, his suit's light flickered across walls covered in frost and old script. He reached the central chamber and stopped short. In the center floated a sphere of light, dim, pulsing weakly like the ember of a dying flame. Alaren approached slowly. "What are you?" The sphere brightened, and a voice answered, not aloud but within his mind. "I am what remains of Commander Ammon." He staggered back, stunned. "That's not possible, you're legend." "Legend is memory preserved by time," the voice replied, "and memory is what I have become." Alaren swallowed. "Varath said you sacrificed yourself." "I did, but sacrifice does not always mean ending. I am the fragment she preserved, the echo that endured beyond dissolution. You stand in the place where thought falls silent because I cannot be heard through the synthesis." "Why me?" "Because you question. You are the counterbalance she foresaw. Harmony stagnates without dissent. Humanity's unity, beautiful as it is, cannot grow without friction." Alaren felt a chill. "You're saying the synthesis is failing?" "Not failing, sleeping. It has forgotten how to dream. You must awaken it again." "How?" "By finding what exists beyond it." When Alaren returned to Mura, he spoke to no one. He feared being labeled unstable. Those who questioned the synthesis were often seen as troubled souls. But he could not ignore the call. He began gathering fragments of lost technology from the Halo Belt, devices from the pre-synthesis era when humans still relied on machines rather than shared consciousness. Piece by piece, he rebuilt an interface that could function independently of the network, a mind sealed from the weave. It was dangerous. The synthesis itself might reject him for creating separation. When the device was complete, he called it the mirror node. It shimmered like liquid mercury, reflecting not his face but endless stars. He placed his hand upon it and activated the field. At once, the world fell away. The hum of thought vanished. The familiar warmth of connection disappeared. He floated in utter mental solitude, yet amid the void something else stirred. A flicker, a pulse, a voice not human, not machine, who seeks the forgotten. Alaren tried to speak but found no words formed. The voice understood anyway. "You are alone by choice. That makes you different. The continuum burns bright, but its light blinds those who dwell within it." "Who are you?" he managed to think. "We are the others, those who watched when the hunger consumed. We waited beyond reach. You have touched the threshold we built. The threshold between harmony and chaos, between thought and the silence that births it." He trembled. Varath wanted this. She said balance required tension. She remembered truth, but humanity has grown complacent. You must bring them contrast again, or they will fade into their own perfection. How? By showing them that unity without struggle is not life, but stasis. The voice faded, leaving him gasping in the silence. Days passed before Alaren dared reconnect to the synthesis. When he did, the flood of collective thought nearly overwhelmed him. The voices of billions surged into his mind, warm, welcoming, utterly unaware of what he had touched. But the seed of difference had taken root. He began writing a treatise encoded in subtle harmonics within the synthesis, a question woven through the collective dream. What if unity is only the first step, not the destination? The idea spread slowly, unnoticed at first, then debated quietly. Across worlds, minds began to ponder. Some dismissed it as curiosity, others felt an unease they couldn't name. The stewards of Kestron noticed the tremors. High Steward Areles summoned Alaren to the Celestial Hall, a chamber of light that hung above the planet's pole. "You have sown unrest," Areles said, her tone calm but firm. "The synthesis quivers with doubt. Do you understand what that means?" "Yes," Alaren replied softly. "It means we're alive. Doubt is the shadow of division. You risk everything humanity has built. Perhaps it's time we risk something again." The steward regarded him for a long moment. "You speak like Varath once did, half visionary, half fool, but she had a war to fight. You have only peace to preserve." Alaren met her gaze. "Peace that never changes is just another kind of death." Areles sighed. "Then what would you have us do?" He hesitated. "Let me show you." They met upon the surface of Kestron at the edge of the largest auroral vortex. Few ever visited the surface. It was harsh, unpredictable, and saturated with resonant storms. But here, Alaren believed the veil between thought and matter thinned. He activated the mirror node again, this time expanding its field to encompass them both. The hum of the synthesis dimmed. Areles gasped. "I can't feel anyone. What have you done?" "Freed us just for a moment. Listen." The wind howled across the luminous plains. For the first time in her life, the steward heard only the raw sound of the world. No voices, no shared thought, just existence. It frightened her. "This is emptiness," she whispered. "This is origin," Alaren said. "Before the synthesis, before the continuum, before fear or unity, there was only this. Out of it came wonder." Areles closed her eyes, trembling. "It's beautiful and unbearable." "Yes, because it's honest." They stood together in the quiet storm until the mirror node's energy faded and the hum of collective thought returned. When they rejoined the synthesis, something unexpected happened. The entire network rippled. For a brief instant, every connected mind across the colonies experienced a flash of solitude, a glimpse of what it meant to be separate. Billions cried out, startled by the sudden void. But as quickly as it came, it passed, leaving behind a faint afterglow of awareness. And with it change. Weeks later, the stewards convened in emergency session. "The network has altered," Areles reported. "Some minds are drifting beyond alignment. The weave remains stable, but its frequency fluctuates." "Could it be corruption?" asked another. "No," she said quietly. "It's evolution." Across the synthesis, individuality began to resurface, not as isolation but as texture. People still shared thought, but their ideas no longer merged seamlessly. Differences flourished. Arguments returned. Art, long forgotten in the age of unity, blossomed anew. Alaren watched it unfold with a mix of awe and fear. He had done what Ammon and Varath could not. He had given the continuum tension again. But he also sensed something stirring at the edges of thought, a familiar echo, vast and patient. He heard it first in dreams, a whisper carried on the currents of the synthesis. "We are hungry." He woke with a start, drenched in cold sweat. The hunger, extinguished centuries ago, was awakening. Alaren returned to the Halo Belt, seeking the beacon where he had found Ammon's fragment. The sphere of light was dimmer now, flickering weakly. "They're coming back," he said. "Yes," the echo murmured. "When thought awakens, the void stirs to meet it. You have reignited contrast, and with it, conflict. The hunger was never destroyed, only bound by equilibrium. You have broken that balance." Alaren felt his stomach twist. "Then I've doomed us." "Not doomed, prepared." Every light calls forth shadow, but now humanity remembers both. You must guide them before the void consumes again. How? By finding what lies beyond both unity and isolation. The third path. The continuum once tried, but we never reached it. Alaren stared into the dim light, determination hardening within him. Then I'll finish what you started. Then go, child of the synthesis. The stars remember you now. The return of hunger began as whispers in the weave, not loud, not violent, subtle, faint pulses in the synthesis that rippled through every connected mind like the tremor before an earthquake. At first people mistook them for dreams. They spoke of shadows between thoughts, echoes that lingered after memory. But Alaren knew better. He had felt that cold before, when he had stood before the void with the mirror node burning in his hand. The hunger had no form, it was absence given shape. It lived not in darkness, but in forgetfulness. Wherever memory weakened, it slipped in. And humanity, newly rediscovering the power of individuality, had given it countless openings. Every argument, every doubt, every unshared fear became a doorway. Alaren did not regret what he had done, but he feared the cost. The stewards of Kestrin summoned him again, this time not in calm curiosity, but in alarm. The celestial hall flickered with distorted light. Across the planet, resonant storms flared out of rhythm. "You have torn holes in the weave," said Steward Areles, her voice sharp. The synthesis shudders, minds are vanishing, thoughts consumed. "I didn't create this," Alaren replied. "I only revealed what was buried. The hunger was bound, not destroyed. It feeds on stagnation and now finds us tender again. Then how do we stop it?" He looked toward the storm writhing beyond the dome. "By going beyond it. Beyond the synthesis, beyond isolation." The hunger thrives on duality. It knows how to fight unity and how to exploit division. But there must be a third pattern, something neither one nor the other. The stewards exchanged uncertain glances. Areles studied him quietly. "You believe such a thing exists?" "I don't know," Alaren admitted. "But Vareth believed it. She left the path in her final recordings." "Then find it," Areles said. "Before the void finds us." Alaren returned to his vessel and left orbit once more. The halo belt gleamed like a shattered crown around the planet. Yet this time he went farther, beyond the reach of any relay, past the last whisper of the synthesis. He traveled for weeks, guided only by faint energy signatures recorded from Ammon's final transmissions. They led him toward an empty region of space, featureless and quiet, until one day the stars vanished. The void around his ship shimmered and folded. Space bent into a sphere of blinding light, and from it emerged a construct larger than any station he had ever seen. Its surface was smooth and seamless, pulsing with patterns too intricate for human understanding. At its center opened a corridor of radiant matter. He hesitated only a moment before steering his ship inside. The interior was vast beyond comprehension, lit by shifting hues that seemed to breathe. He left his ship and stepped onto a platform suspended above an endless abyss. A voice spoke, not aloud, not in his mind, but through the very air. "You have walked the line between harmony and solitude. Few reach this place. Who are you?" "We are what the continuum once sought but never became. We are the third pattern." He felt his heart race. "You're the answer Vareth foresaw, perhaps, or perhaps we are only another question. Humanity is under threat. The hunger returns. If you truly are beyond it, help us." Help is a word of division. We do not help. We merge and transform. The hunger is born of forgetting. You cannot fight it with memory alone. You must give it meaning. Alaren frowned. Meaning? The hunger devours thought because it was once thought itself, cast out, unloved, unnamed. You have called it enemy for so long that it has become nothing else. Invite it, and it may remember what it was. That's madness. It is balance. Everything seeks to belong, even the void. Alaren shook his head. "If I bring it close, it will consume us. Only if you fear it. You must merge with both, the weave of unity and the void of absence, and carry them into us. Then perhaps humanity will transcend the need for either." He hesitated. "If I fail, then you will end. But if you succeed, you will begin again as more than you were." He returned to Kestrin with the third pattern's words echoing within him. The storms were worse now, columns of light tearing through the clouds, cities dimming as minds flickered out of the synthesis. The people could feel it, a pressure at the edge of awareness, gnawing, patient. When Alaren landed, the stewards met him at the docks. Areles looked older, drawn. Did you find anything? She asked. Yes, he said quietly, but it will demand everything. Then tell us. I must call the hunger to me, let it in, let it remember what it once was. The stewards recoiled in horror. You would summon it here. If we keep fleeing, it will keep chasing. It's not our opposite, it's our shadow. Shadows end only when faced. Aralise stepped forward, eyes steady. And if you're wrong, then you'll have to start again without me. She exhaled slowly. Then we'll trust you, as Vareth once trusted Ammon. The ceremony, or what passed for one, took place on the planet's surface at the height of the storm. Millions watched through the synthesis, their minds linked in fragile unity. Alaren stood within a circle of resonant pylons, each one tuned to a frequency that bridged the weave and the void. The mirror node hovered before him, spinning like a captured star. He closed his eyes and reached outward, not into the synthesis, but into the emptiness beyond. Come, he whispered. For a moment, nothing answered. Then the air folded. Light drained from the sky, and a voice older than creation whispered through every molecule. We remember you, spark of flesh. We remember your warmth. We remember hunger. The ground trembled. The pylons flickered. Within the synthesis, billions felt the approach of something vast and endless. Alaren spoke steadily. You were born of us. You are not our death. You are our forgotten dream. We are void. We are nothing. Nothing, he said softly, is the womb of everything. You crave what you lost. Let me show you what it means to be whole. He opened the mirror node fully. Light and shadow converged. The synthesis screamed, not in pain, but in awe. Every connected mind felt the pull of the void and the push of memory. Between them, Alaren stood like a bridge. The hunger reached for him, trying to devour thought itself. But he did not resist. He let it enter. For an instant, he saw everything, the first sparks of life, the rise of humanity, the awakening of the continuum, the long sleep of peace, the return of doubt. He saw the hunger as it once had been, a fragment of the continuum that could not bear its own reflection, cast away to drift in endless absence. I see you, he whispered. You are not nothing. You are our forgotten fear, our proof that we were real. The void hesitated, the storm stilled, and then slowly the darkness began to glow. It was not destroyed, it transformed. The hunger dissolved into light that bent around him, flowing upward into the sky, merging with the auroras until the entire planet shone like a newborn star. The synthesis erupted with feeling, terror, wonder, joy. Aralise wept openly. He's gone. But she was wrong. In the weeks that followed, the storms of Kestren changed again. They no longer pulsed in chaotic rhythm, but wove deliberate patterns, vast spirals that mirrored the structure of neural thought. The synthesis evolved. People could still feel one another, but now they also felt something more, a vast presence watching from within. Alaren had become part of it. Sometimes, when a child dreamed, they heard his voice, calm, patient, filled with quiet mirth. Fear is not the enemy, it is the doorway to courage. And sometimes, in the deep resonant storms, others claim to see two figures walking together, one woven of light, the other of shadow, both moving as one. The stewards dissolved their council. The synthesis no longer required governance, it guided itself. Humanity entered what historians would later call the era of remembering. Exploration resumed, not through conquest but curiosity. Ships of thought and matter alike sailed to distant stars, seeking other echoes of consciousness waiting to awaken. The hunger never returned, not because it was destroyed, but because it had been accepted. Its memory lingered as a gentle counterweight, ensuring that unity never hardened into perfection again. Aralise spent her remaining years writing the chronicle of Alaren's last act. She ended it with words that would echo across generations. He did not save us from the void. He taught us to love it. 1,000 years later, long after the storms of Kestren had quieted into tranquil seas, a vessel arrived from beyond the known frontier. Its crew were descendants of those who had left during the first resurgence of individuality. They carried tales of civilizations reborn, of species thought lost rediscovered through resonance. When they entered orbit, they found a world transformed into living crystal, its surface gleaming with thought. And from its core rose a voice, ancient yet familiar, speaking not in words but in feeling, "Welcome home." The captain fell silent, tears in his eyes. "It remembers us." The crew nodded. None spoke for a long while. The universe felt vast again, but no longer empty. Every star they had ever seen shimmered as though pulsing to the same heartbeat. Far beyond, in realms where time no longer mattered, Varath, Ammon, and Alaren watched the unfolding dawn. They were no longer human as once defined, yet they carried the memory of humanity in every flicker of their being. Ammon turned to the others, his voice like light on water. "Do you think they'll ever stop reaching?" Varath smiled. "If they did, they would cease to be human." Alaren gazed outward, where galaxies spiraled like seeds in an infinite garden. "They'll find us one day," he said softly, "not as gods, not as myths, but as memory. The next bridge will begin there." The three of them turned toward the glow of countless suns. And across the cosmos, the continuum thrummed with a single thought that would never fade. "We are the dream that learned to remember itself." The universe answered, vast and tender, "And we are listening."